Our next guest is chairman of W.J. Deutsch Sons, one of the nation's leading fine wine importers. They are positioned as the fifth largest wine company in the United States, as well as being recognized for their ability to build brands and be a true sales and marketing leader worldwide. The company is celebrated for building imported brands in the U.S., Australian, and now brands in the U.S. of A. Our guest has won numerous accolades, including MarketWatch's Industry Executive of the Year, Brand Week's Marketer of the Year, Wine Enthusiast's Importer of the Year, and I must stop there because we'll take the entire program just on this fella's accolades. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Bill Deutsch.
Thank you, Scott, and thanks to 170 family members of the Deutsch Company who made it all possible.
Most recently, your company made an announcement you're going spirits. Now, you've been pretty much exclusive to wine. This is a big move. Tell us about that decision.
Well, I'm concerned about the economy. I'm concerned about unemployment. I think our country has a real problem getting people back to work, and maybe to a certain degree that was in the back of my mind.
So this is going to be new jobs for people.
It's funny, we're looking for 10 salespeople around the country. We're looking for 2 brand managers and a mixologist. So our HR people put it onto, jobs.com or one of them, and I understand the first week they have over 1,000 resumes from throughout the entire United States. It's mind-boggling. Fortunately, it's not my department.
You know, Bill, one of the greatest success stories ever has to be Yellowtail. It's almost as if you launched the entire Australian wine industry over here. How'd this get started?
Oh, we started the company in 1981 and was successful with a number of different brands. André Lurton from Bordeaux, George Duboff from the Beaujolais. We built those brands during the next 20 years. Sometime in 1997, I was sitting with Peter, and I said I thought the time had come to get involved in the Australian wine business. And he agreed. We followed the same concept as we did when looking for other brands. This time we went to the Australian Trade Commission and explained to them, we want to get into the Australian wine business. We want to find a family producer interested in doing business in the United States with a family. Go find us one. Strictly by coincidence, and maybe there was some shining star upstairs that was looking over our shoulder. A family by the name of Casella in Griffith, Australia, was looking for an American importing family, and they went to the Australian Trade Commission, told them what they wanted. The Australian Trade Commission realized that they had a buyer and a seller. They brought us together. We negotiated for about a year and a half, and finally the Casella said, you know what, let's go with the Deutsch family rather than some big American wine spirits company. And we started off with a brand called Carmar Estate. Sold about 25,000 cases. There was nothing really exciting about it. It was a Me Too brand. And John Casella came back and said, you know what, Bill, we haven't been too successful. Should I go back to the drawing board, or do you folks want to break off the relationship? And I said, John, I don't want to break off the relationship. We feel very close with you people. Why not go back to the drawing board? See if you can find something unique and different that separates you from other Australian brands. Don't be a Me Too. They went to see a label designer, and they came back to us and showed us something that I had never seen before, and it was a label with a kangaroo on it. We tasted the wine, which was fantastic. He gave us the pricing, and we thought that the wine over-delivered for what the price would be. My son Peter loved the packaging. I, with all my years of experience, thought kangaroo on a bottle looks funny because I wasn't used to that. But I realized that I'd gotten a couple of gray hairs in my head, and I wasn't the younger generation. We then took that bottle out to our distributors, and everybody flipped over it. And the rest is history.
Incredible story. It's about quality wine, but it's really also about a label that was a revolution in itself.
The label became so attractive that any number of companies began to copy or emulate what we had done with Yellowtail. And retailers began to complain and said, my retail store is turning into a farm with kangaroos and fishes and you name it. And people began to copy our colors. Today, it's a different story. Today, most of these animals have fallen by the wayside. The wine cemetery, as I call it, is beginning to fill with all of these unsuccessful brands, and the one that's remained and is by far the strongest of all of these animal labels is Yellowtail.
Yeah, good point, because so many people try to copy that idea, but the one that still comes through, the one that's still the winner, is the original.
I think the reason for that is that the two families, the Casellas and the Deutsches, here in the United States, built this together. We couldn't do it without them. They couldn't do it without us. It was a team effort, and we went through some tough growing pains, out of stock, short shipments, all kinds of mistakes that new brands make as they're being introduced. But together we did more things right than wrong. The brand caught on. People realized they're getting great value for the price being charged, and it became word of mouth, spread all over the country.
I think you've invested in this group. This is a relatively recent development. Essentia Wine Estates. Portfolio includes some big names, including Gary Farrell, Geyser Peak, Buena Vista, and 5 more major brands. Would I be correct in saying that this relatively recent development was also a statement about diversity for you?
Good question, Scott. For a number of years, we were an import company. We were representing family producers, for the most part, from Europe. And that was the foundation for the company, and it was a very solid foundation. As we grew into the late 90s, we expanded from Europe to Australia and then New Zealand, and that proved to be very successful for us. As we got into the mid-2000s, I realized that the time had come for us to diversify even more and not keep adding foreign imported wines to our portfolio, but let's go into our own backyard and find some domestic properties that we could represent. And we started off with the Kunde Estate Winery in Sonoma, and then a year and a half ago, we made a monetary contribution into a group of wineries that come from California, Washington State, and Idaho. So today, we are a diverse wine company with both import and domestic brands that we proudly market and sell.
Bill, perhaps you could elaborate on the Essentia Wine Estates, the company that was formed for those California and West Coast wineries.
Well, we bought the wineries at a good time. The values were there. We didn't see the September, October, November financial debacle coming at the time we bought them. So that set us back a little bit, but it made us drill down more, made us put on even bigger thinking caps, and with the help of the winemakers out there, with the help of the management team out in California, Washington, and Idaho, we've been able to build an even stronger company. They've trimmed some costs. Nobody has lost their jobs, and they're trying to build an even stronger winery. On the sales end, we're beginning to see the marketplace respond to the very favorable pricing that we've put in place for these quality wines.
You bring up an interesting point here, because we're talking about corporations versus family-run business. Now, clearly, you're a family-run business. What do you think are the advantages to this over being a large corporation?
Family operation is usually more stable. The top executives are probably there for a longer period of time. The family operation can truly devote its time to marketing and sales, whereas the big corporation has to be concerned about the shareholders, and they have to worry about beating last quarter's figures and spend a lot of time in their back office with the financial people figuring out, how do we run the books this month and that month? What do we have to manipulate? What do we have to do? How do we overload the distributor so our quarter looks good? Family business doesn't have to do that.
So in a family business model, does this mean you can personalize your efforts? Maybe you don't have to go through so much red tape if you want to help somebody.
I had a letter last week from one of our employees on the West Coast, and she knows we make charitable deductions. And she said that she's a cancer survivor, and she wants to run a race next month, and would we be in a position to make a small contribution to Leukemia Society so that she could run that race with a head held high. I took that letter home. I had a couple of tears in my eyes. It wasn't the first time. I opened up the contribution checkbook and honestly made out a check, which I brought in this morning. And we sent it out to her for that society. Now, it made me happy to do it. She's probably